What if I told you there was a technology, a wild idea that could stop a tsunami dead in its tracks? I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But today, we're going to dive into a concept that could totally change how we defend ourselves against one of nature's most terrifying forces. It's called the Cryo-Tsunami Shield.
Okay, picture this. Deep under the ocean, the Earth shifts. An incredible amount of energy is unleashed, and a tsunami is born. It's not making a sound, but it's racing across the open water, a silent killer. And it is moving unbelievably fast. We're talking the speed of a jetliner. Right in its path, coastal cities, totally unaware that in just a few moments, everything could be gone. The clock is absolutely ticking.
Look, this isn't just about property or buildings. This is about people. Thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of lives are just hanging in the balance, right in the path of this gigantic, unstoppable wall of water. So this brings us to the ultimate question, one that engineers and scientists have been wrestling with for decades. When you're faced with the raw, brutal power of the entire ocean moving at once, how in the world do you stop something that seems unstoppable? To even begin to answer that, we first have to really, truly understand what we're up against. Because a tsunami, well, it's so much more than just a really big wave. Let's break down its incredible power.
See, here's the thing that most people get wrong. A regular wave is just a surface thing, right? A tsunami is the entire column of water, from the very bottom of the ocean floor all the way up to the surface, being shoved upwards. It is literally the entire ocean heaving.
So we're talking about speeds up to 900 kilometers an hour. It's carrying the explosive energy of millions of tons of TNT. But here's the sneaky part. Out in the deep ocean, you might not even notice it pass. It's only when it gets close to shore that it rears up and becomes an absolute monster. Let's just pause on that number for a second. 900 kilometers per hour. That's the cruising speed of a modern jet. Now imagine a wall of water, the entire ocean, moving that fast. The scale is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. So faced with that kind of force, our usual ideas, just build a bigger seawall, they're just not going to cut it. We need something totally different, a radical new way of thinking. And this idea, well, it's exactly that, a complete shift in how we think about planetary defense. And here it is, the big idea. It's so simple, it's almost crazy. You don't try to build a wall against the wave. You don't try to divert it. You change the very state of the water it's traveling through. You literally freeze the ocean right in its path. Now, hold on. This isn't about some slow freezing process or, dumping a bunch of giant ice tubes into the water. We're talking about theoretical future tech here. The whole concept hinges on an instant phase change, using some kind of powerful energy field or cryogenic pulse to turn liquid water into solid ice in a matter of seconds. Okay, so how would this actually work? The real genius of this idea isn't just making one giant ice block. Nope. It's a strategic, multi-layered defense system. It's designed to take the tsunami apart piece by piece before it ever reaches land.
Think of it like a three-step assault. First, way out at sea, the source breaker freezes water right near the earthquake to mess with the wave just as it's being born. Then, in the middle of the ocean, the mid-ocean Dissipator creates frozen patterns to break up the wave's structure and just drain its energy. And finally, if anything is left, the coastal shield freezes a massive solid wall of ice as the last line of defense.
I know, this all sounds like it's straight out of a comic book, right? But the wild thing is, the core concept is actually grounded in some pretty solid real-world physics. Let's dig into why this isn't pure fantasy. So here's the first bit of genius. The laws of thermodynamics are actually on our side. See, to turn liquid water into solid ice, you need to suck out a ton of energy. And where does that energy come from? It's pulled directly from the tsunami's own forward motion. The wave literally weakens itself to create the very barrier that's going to stop it. And then you've got just plain old classical mechanics. A tsunami has an unbelievable amount of mass and momentum pushing it forward. Well, what happens when a massive, fast-moving object hits a massive solid object, like a gigantic wall of ice? It stops. It's a brute force solution on a planetary scale. But this, to me, is the most elegant part. A tsunami gets its destructive power from its perfect, uniform shape. By freezing parts of the ocean in specific, calculated patterns, you introduce chaos into that perfect system. You completely ruin its structure, and the wave starts to fall apart long before it even sees the coastline.
So you put those three things together, the energy absorption, the momentum blocking, and the wave disruption, and you do it across those three strategic zones. The theoretical models suggest an incredible result. You could dissipate over 90% of the tsunami's energy, and that's the difference between total annihilation and something manageable. This whole idea is just mind-blowing. But okay, let's take a deep breath and come back to Earth for a minute. What would it actually take to make this dream a reality? What's the path forward? And yeah, the list of challenges is, well, it's huge. We're talking about technologies that are way, way beyond what we can do today. We'd need to figure out how to manipulate insane amounts of energy, invent that instant freeze tech, build devices that can survive for decades in the crushing pressure of the deep ocean, and then link it all to flawless, real-time AI that can predict and react in seconds. But before you just write this all off as impossible, think about this list for a second. Every single one of these things, flying, going to the moon, editing our own DNA, was considered pure fantasy at one point. It was impossible. What history shows us again and again is that impossible is often just another way of saying we haven't figured it out yet. So, beyond all the cool tech and the fascinating physics, why should we even bother imagining something that might be a century or more away? What's the real point of a technological dream like this? It really all comes down to this. The drive behind this isn't just about scientific curiosity. It's about protecting people. It's about preventing a tragedy we can't even comprehend. It's this idea that even if this idea saves one soul someday, it is worth imagining today. We're planting the seed of an idea now so that maybe a future generation can make it grow and save lives. You know, the Cryo-Tsunami Shields started with a simple what-if, a thought experiment that blossomed into this incredible, potentially world-saving idea. It's a powerful reminder that today's boldest, craziest imagination really can become tomorrow's reality. And that leaves all of us with a really important question. What impossible future will you dare to imagine?